Okay, think about this. In the last, 3,421 years, only 268 have actually seen no war.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just let that sink in. It's a statistic from the book we're looking at today.
Right.
And it just immediately makes you ask, are we just doomed to keep making the same mistakes over and over?
It's a stark thought, isn't it? And it's exactly the kind of big pattern Will and Ariel Durant were wrestling with in The Lessons of History.
Yeah, it's
Published back in 1968, a really turbulent time globally. And this book, it's short, like barely over 100 pages, but it tries to pack in 5,000 years of human history. Talk about perspective when people really needed it.
Exactly, perspective. Because they weren't just listing dates and events, were they?
No, not at all.
Their whole mission, it seems, was to find these universal threads, these patterns, to help us understand now and maybe make better choices later.
Precisely. They were really pushing back against what they called cultural amnesia.
Forgetting history.
Yeah, forgetting history and then, repeating its disasters. It's quite something how they managed to condense so much into such a small package.
It really is. So what are some of these universal patterns they pulled out? Things we can still learn from?
Well, one of the things they really emphasize is how foundational things like, say, geography and economics are.
Okay. How so?
They basically argued that where a nation is its land, its mountains, plains, its access to, water or resources, that stuff often shapes its whole character, its destiny even.
Huh. Interesting.
Think about it. Huge open plains might lead to these big unified empires, right? While mountains often mean smaller, more independent states.
Right, like ancient Greece or Switzerland.
Exactly. These aren't just like historical footnotes. They're patterns that help explain things even today, geopolitically.
So those big forces kind of set the scene. But what about us, people? Did the Durants think, our basic human nature has changed much over all that time?
That's a huge question they dive into. Has human nature really evolved? Their take was, maybe not as much as we'd like to think. Yeah. They suggested that a lot of recurring problems, conflict, inequality, you name it, stem from pretty constant human traits. Our drive to acquire things, our competitiveness.
Our tendency to cooperate sometimes, but also conflict.
Right, both sides of the coin. They even use these biological analogies, seeing civilizations almost like living things.
Like organisms.
Yeah, like organisms being born, growing up, maturing, and then eventually declining or changing form. It implies societies have these natural cycles influenced by our inherent tendencies. And actually synthesizing these really complex ideas, it's kind of fitting because you are experiencing a unique two-host AI conversation right now powered by Google's NotebookLM, which helps us pull together this deeper analysis for you.
That leads into some of the more, let's say, challenging parts of the book, doesn't it? Like, they touch on ideas around biological inequality. How did they handle that kind of sensitive topic?
They did explore it, yeah. Looking at how maybe inherent differences in abilities, like intelligence or strength, could play a role in how societies develop over time.
That sounds risky.
It is, and they stress that. They emphasize that you need extreme caution with such ideas to avoid misusing them, or worse, justifying prejudice.
Okay.
What's notable is how upfront they were about the limits of history writing, They weren't claiming to have all the answers, and they actively invited skepticism. They weren't trying to win a political argument.
So the goal was more about wisdom.
Yeah.
Applying lessons carefully.
Exactly. Trying to use history to avoid repeating the same old tragedies, if possible.
So, okay, despite all these seemingly endless cycles and these warnings, did they actually offer any, real hope for progress? Are we getting anywhere?
They did, but it was, let's say, cautious optimism. Progress isn't guaranteed. It's not inevitable.
Right.
It comes, they argued, from actually applying these lessons we learned from history, not just knowing them.
Action, not just knowledge.
Precisely. That mindful study, really thinking about the past, can potentially help us break some of those tragic cycles. And digging into that kind of reflection, that's really what we aim for on our YouTube channel, Mindful Moments. We use AI analysis there too, trying to spark that kind of thinking in our content.
So in the end, the Durants are really telling us, look back to figure out how to move forward.
That's the core message, I think.
Which brings us back to that initial question, maybe for you listening. If history does have these repeating patterns, what deeply ingrained is human tendency, the Durants highlight, do you think is the most critical one for us to understand, maybe even manage, to avoid stumbling into the same pitfalls again?
That's a great question to ponder.
Definitely something to think about. We hope this conversation gave you some food for thought. You can click the link on screen to get a summary of the book.
And please do subscribe to our channel. Maybe share this with someone you think would find it interesting.
Yeah, and if you want to read the lessons of history yourself, there's a purchase link available too.
And above all, keep thinking critically.
Absolutely. Until next time.